Oh look, another project I've neglected for ages. Sand batteries are cool. Well, not really, they're actually rather warm. Anyway, a while back, I introduced the concept and even tried to build one. Build being used very loosely here. Nevertheless, I made one and it kinda worked. Sand batteries aren't your typical kind of battery. When you think of the word battery, you might be thinking of a song by a popular metal band, or most likely what you're thinking of is an electrochemical cell, most commonly in the form of rechargeable lithium-ion batteries or as disposable alkaline cells. But you see, nature isn't really fussy about how energy is stored. Electrochemical cells are just one of the denser ways of going about it. Chemical fuels are denser still, and are in fact the most dense, commonly available energy storage medium. When you move away from chemistry towards physics, you generally have three options for energy storage: mechanical, gravitational potential, and thermal. Flywheels and pumped hydro systems occupy the first two designations. Thermal energy storage is accomplished by things called heat batteries. Sand batteries are one such type of these thermal energy storage devices, and they work by storing heat energy in sand, which has a relatively high heat capacity. Water has a better heat capacity still. You might be surprised to find that if you make a hot drink and store it in a thermos in the morning, and then open it up at midday, it's still rather warm. The problem with using water, in spite of its superior heat capacity compared to sand, is that it evaporates at above 100 C, which limits how much energy could be stored in it in a theoretical closed system. Sand, on the other hand, can be heated to hundreds of degrees without physically changing much. It's an inert solid with a ridiculously high melting point, which is one of the reasons why it took humanity so long to learn how to make glass. But why do this anyway, instead of using conventional battery cells? Sand batteries and heat batteries in general have the advantage of being able to be made from cheap, abundant, inert materials, along with having a relatively simple construction. The caveat is that they're bulky. They can store a lot of energy, but don't expect a sand battery inside your phone or even your car. Sand batteries aren't meant to be energy dense, but rather a cheap way to store a lot of energy from various sources, especially energy that's going to be in constant use. A key component of sand batteries is insulation to prevent heat from escaping, which I covered in my last video on this topic. However, even with ample insulation, sand batteries are still prone to heat loss, much like how a flywheel will gradually slow down over time, even if over extended periods. Therefore, it could be more accurate to suggest that sand batteries and other heat batteries are more like a thermal flywheel than a true battery, kind of a halfway house between a battery and a capacitor. Innovations in heat battery tech, therefore, should probably be directed towards minimizing heat loss, and that's something I wanted to explore with my latest experiment. My last attempt at a sand battery was merely a demo. I figured I could do a lot better. And that's what we're going to be exploring in this episode of Doing It Ourselves. So let's get right into it. My last attempt at a sand battery was simply a small can filled with sand, loosely flanked by some ceramic wall insulation. And this was less than ideal for a few reasons. While steel is less thermally conductive than copper, it is still a conductor of heat. This meant lots of heat was being lost, and the loosely packed insulation surrounding the thing wasn't really helping much either. If I wanted the sand to retain a significant amount of heat, I would need to use a container that's also a natural insulator. A suitable, cheap and accessible vessel for my sand battery would be something like a simple terracotta plant pot, and that's what I've opted for. Ceramics in general are poor conductors of heat, and this should help a lot with heat retention. They're not perfect insulators though, which is why I decided to add even more insulation to ensure that as much heat stays in the sand as possible. To do this, I first lined the pot with multiple layers of aluminium foil, which is a material that can reflect heat. I then padded the bottom and the inner perimeter of the pot with ceramic wall insulation. I then did the same on the outside. I secured the insulation to the pot with tape before wrapping the whole thing in more foil. With the lid of the pot, I placed a piece of ceramic wall insulation into it before covering it with, you guessed it, more aluminium foil. I then lined the inside of what would be the sand battery with, yes, more foil, and this serves as the chamber where the actual sand will sit. The simplest method I could think of for this sand battery is joule heating, or in layman's terms, just pumping some juice through the thing. I created a small heating element by wrapping some nichrome wire around a marker pen. I have a bench power supply that maxes out at about 150 watts, and this should provide enough oomph to heat up the sand. On measuring my heating element with a multimeter, we can see it has a resistance of about 3.3 ohms. After pouring in the sand and submerging my heating element, it was time for testing. I hooked up the heating element to my power supply and turned the thing on. My power supply maxes out at about 5 amps before it reaches its limit and throttles the voltage. I ended up running the tests at about 15.8 volts, which meant the heating element drew about 4.5 amps. This meant that we were shoving about 70 watts through the sand battery. With no heating, the sand battery remains at room temperature, as expected. I set a 10-minute timer on my phone, turned on my power supply, and let the sand heat up. When the 10 minutes were up, I turned everything off and took a temperature reading. If my thermometer was correct, after heating, the sand battery had a temperature of around 130 to 150 C. Now it was time to test heat retention. I disconnected the leads, covered the sand battery with its lid, and set another 10-minute timer. After coming back to take another reading, I was pleasantly surprised to find that the sand battery had only dropped about 10 to 15 C, which was much better than the previous sand battery. So I got curious and started another 30-minute timer. And when I came back, the sand battery had decreased in temperature a lot more dramatically, but it was still a lot warmer than room temperature. While I was somewhat pleased with these results, I knew I could do better. The perimeter and the bottom of the sand battery weren't warm after heating, only the area around the lid, and this led me to believe that there was some thermal bleed at the top. Fortunately, I had an idea of how to solve this problem. 3D printer hot ends are insulated by things called silicone socks. This drastically improves heat retention and thus thermal efficiency of those hot ends. I wondered if I could use silicone as an insulator for my sand battery. After all, it is an insulator and has one of the highest thermal resistances of any polymer. Now, I'd never worked with silicone before, however I was excited to because of the immense variety of things that can be made with it, and the fact that it's actually pretty recyclable, but that's for a future video. The first thing I needed to do was acquire some 2-part silicone. What I then needed to do was design and 3D print a mold for my new outer lid. This is what I came up with. I thought I was being clever with this design, but as you will see shortly, this didn't quite go as planned. I thought I could create a mold whereby I released the silicone by pushing apart the 2 pieces of the mold, but the silicone ended up being a little bit too good of an adhesive, and I ended up having to destroy the mold to get the thing out. I also underestimated how much silicone this would take, and I ended up having to do multiple pours for the same part. Anyway, after demolding, I was quite impressed considering that this was my first attempt at making a somewhat large-scale silicone part. Anyway, it was time for me to do my second round of testing. I did the same thing as before, half an hour heating, half an hour to test the heat retention of the sand battery. The sand battery topped out this time at a temperature of between 208 and 235 degrees C, and after the half an hour heat retention test, the temperature had dropped to about 130. I took another reading about 20 minutes after that, and my thermometer gave me readings of between 90 and 100 degrees C. The cooling had slowed down, and this makes sense because of the relationship between heat capacity and temperature. It seems that between the 80 and 90 C range, the sand battery was reliably storing some heat. However, there was still a lot of thermal bleed from the top, and I think this was 1, due to inadequate insulation at the top, and 2, I think the aluminium foil of the lid was conducting some heat from where it was interfacing with the sand, and it was conducting that heat to the other side of the lid and into the environment. In either case, I had to completely redesign the inner lid. So I hopped into FreeCAD and designed another 2-part mold. I thought it would be a good idea to prep the mold by first sealing the mold together with silicone. However, this didn't quite go as planned. The next thing I tried was wrapping the whole thing in biodegradable wrap. I thought this would prevent the mold from leaking. However, this didn't really work at all either. What I ended up doing was something I didn't want to do, which was to seal the two parts of the mold together with hot glue. I was trying to avoid this because hot glue is made of something called ethylene vinyl acetate, which isn't biodegradable. However, it was the only option that worked. After sealing the mold with hot glue and doing the pour, I was pleasantly surprised to find that there was very little leakage, and the mold cured as expected. After the silicone had cured, I was able to pry the mold apart and release the silicone part from it. And now it was time to see if my efforts were worthwhile. A final time, I heated the sand battery for another 30 minutes before removing the heating element and taking a temperature reading of well over 200 C. I inserted my new inner lid and covered the top with the silicone sock I made earlier. I then tested the heat retention for another 30 minutes. Strangely, despite being more insulated, the temperature drop this time was more dramatic. The sand battery had dropped close to 100 C. Although to some extent this might be the result of me removing the element this time. Although something I did notice is that after taking another reading, about 5 to 10 minutes after the last, the sand was still over 100 C. So, did I make a working sand battery? Well, kind of. There is some evidence that my sand battery was able to retain some heat and lose heat at a slower rate than if the sand were fully exposed to the environment. So in a way, we can call this a sand battery, but not a particularly useful one. Something I learned about whilst working on this project is something called the square cube law. In essence, when you cube an object's volume or mass, you only square its surface area. To put it in simpler terms, surface area scales slower than mass or volume. And this is important because heat loss is directly related to the surface area of an object. Hence, a larger thermal mass will have less surface area proportional to its size than a smaller one. What this means is that in reality, for sand batteries to work effectively and to store heat for long periods of time, they need to be very large in size. Smaller models, like the one I built in this video, are most likely more accurately called something like a thermal capacitor, which, if anything, could be used for cases where you only need to store a certain amount of heat for a short period of time. While I didn't build perhaps the best sand battery ever in this video, I did learn a lot about how they work, how they're made, and what their niches and limitations are. It's very likely that my design could be improved immensely, and that's something I will probably look into in the future. In a sustainable future, we might use sand batteries to heat buildings in the winter, perhaps taking advantage of abundant solar heat during the summer months. But at least for now, electrochemical cells remain the king of compact energy storage. Thank you all for watching, take care, and I will see you next time.